Most fossils now classified as Homo heidelbergensis were previously known as Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis, and even archaic Homo sapiens. With the discovery of numerous fossils in recent decades, many researchers now accept Homo heidelbergensis as a distinct species, though the designation of some fossils remains debatable because they possess features that are transitional between earlier and later species. Some European fossils exhibit characteristics that suggest they were intermediate between earlier Homo heidelbergensis and later Neanderthals. Their classification is therefore debatable. Are they Homo heidelbergensis or early Homo neanderthalensis? Whatever the case, there is evidence that Heidelbergensis was capable of controlling fire by constructing hearths or early fireplaces nearly 700,000 years ago, as evidenced by fire-altered tools and burnt wood. Why did they gather at these early hearths? Perhaps to socialize, find comfort and warmth, share food and information, and stay safe from predators. Heidelbergensis also most likely took advantage of natural shelters, but it was also the first species to construct simple structures. The evidence for this comes from the Terra Amata site in France. Indeed, these humans constructed houses 700,000 years before modern humans. Since the Cromerian interglacial, Europe has recorded evidence of shelters with solid foundations built in sheltered areas. The oldest example is a 700,000-year-old stone foundation from Presletis, in the former Czech Republic. This dwelling most likely had a vaulted roof, made of thick branches or thin poles, which were supported by a foundation of large rocks and earth. Homo heidelbergensis undoubtedly used stone tools. Now it appears that our prehistoric friend also constructed shelters. It appears to be made up of 10 post holes arranged in 2 irregular pentagons, allegedly left over from 2 different huts. There were also many stone tools scattered throughout the site. We don't know if this was a permanent structure, but it does show that they built shelters. Who knows if they stayed at this refuge for a week or a month? They wanted to design a structure that would allow people to sleep while establishing a conceptual boundary between inside and outside. Other such dwellings are thought to have existed during or after the Holstein interglacial, which began 424,000 years ago, in Bilzingsleben, Germany, and Terra Amata, France. These were most likely occupied during the winter, and with an average size of 12 feet by 10 feet, they were probably only used for sleeping, with other activities, including firekeeping, taking place outside. What's more, less permanent tent technology made from animal skins may have also existed in Europe during the lower Paleolithic. Now, prehistoric stone tools discovered in a cave in Poland 50 years ago have recently been identified as among the oldest ever discovered in the region. The tools found in the Tunel-Wilki cave are estimated to be 450,000 to 550,000 years old. This dating may help scientists learn more about the early humans who created them, as well as their migration and settlement in Central Europe throughout prehistory. In fact, the time frame suggests that the tools were created by the aforementioned human species known as Homo heidelbergensis, which is commonly regarded as the last common ancestor of Neanderthals and modern humans of the species Homo sapiens. And it means that humans inhabited the region at a time when Central Europe's harsh climate would have necessitated significant physical and cultural adaptation. For example, scientists can investigate the limits of Heidelbergensis's chances of survival and thus see how he adapted to these harsh conditions. The same cave also yielded an unusually large number of mammoth tusks, which the researchers hypothesized could have been used to form a defensive barrier against predators. Archaeologists discovered that the upper layers of the cave floor did indeed contain animal bones from the late Pleistocene and Holocene periods, but the bottom layer was noticeably older. It contained the bones of several extinct species that lived 500,000 years ago, including the European jaguar, Panthera gombasuensis, the Mosbach wolf, an ancestor of modern grey wolves, Canis mosbacensis, and Denninger's bear, Ursus denningeri. In another site, cave lions lived in what is now Italy between 660,000 and 610,000 years ago. A metatarsal bone from the Notarchirico site in the Basilicata region, discovered during a re-examination of previous finds, confirms this. And it is the oldest known evidence of the now extinct big cat in southern Europe. The archaeological site also yielded Italy's oldest human fossil, most likely an adolescent Heidelbergensis. The site is also well known for providing one of the earliest evidence of the Aeolian culture in Europe, as well as documentation of recurring human settlement between 695,000 and 610,000 years ago. The Aeolian culture, which appeared in Africa around 1 million years ago, was distinguished by the development of hand axes, worked on both sides, and other new stone tools. The Aeolian culture first appeared in Europe over 600,000 years ago and quickly spread to the north and south from the east. African lions and other large mammals spread across Europe around the same time, during the early to middle Pleistocene transition. Around 900,000 years ago, humanity faced a bottleneck caused by a long and severe ice age that lasted over 100,000 years. Only the most badass, strongest, fastest, intelligent and adaptable humans survived the bottleneck and passed down their genes. The Italian soprano skull may also be from this time period. Archaeologists believe that the specimen, estimated to be 700,000 years old, represented a wave of dispersals into Europe from Iberia and the Middle East, 900,000 to 800,000 years ago. Interestingly, the specimen contains several injuries. The first is a deep, wide recess infiltrating the left sinus region, which was discovered but not reported early in soprano skull's research history. Secondly, there is a healed depression in the right brow. This was most likely caused by an altercation with a large animal in which the skull was butted and fractured. This is more plausible than another, more popular explanation that the blow was delivered by another human wielding a club, thus implying murder. Researchers hypothesized that the individual was a young adult male who hunted for himself or the group and was bold and aggressive based on the number of injuries. The fracture healed, indicating that it did not result in his death, and the malformation on the skull was neither restrictive nor painful enough to limit the subject's physical abilities. Giant hyenas went extinct in Europe between 900,000 and 700,000 years ago, while other large mammals like the European forest elephant, red deer and wild boar arrived from Asia and Africa. The discovery of an over 600,000-year-old Panthera spelaea, as the cave lion is scientifically known, strengthens the case that this species was a part of this major faunal renewal in Europe. During this time, the rhythm of glacial and interglacial periods shifted. The cycles became longer, ranging from approximately 40,000 to 100,000 years. This time was accompanied by significant recurring climate and environmental changes, which would have put significant strain on the ecological and behavioral adaptations of both humans and other species living at the time. New discoveries indicate that our ancestor was more sophisticated than previously thought. The use-wear analysis of their tools yields several interesting findings. An examination of the base of stone tools reveals that the hominid likely attached stone points to sticks, resulting in a type of spear. It is an important step in human development because it requires the combination of two materials, a stone tip and a stick, to form a composite tool. Scientists are still figuring out the details. For example, they could have been making spears out of short sticks. While not as useful for hunting, the short stick could act as an extension of the tool, allowing you to hold it while scraping or engraving. Researchers are also looking into whether Homo heidelbergensis used sticky organic material to help with spear hafting. Investigators also discovered evidence from use-wear analysis that Heidelberg man used stone tools to work wood, which did not survive in the cave, and possibly convert it into wooden tools. Perhaps the most unusual discovery was evidence of drilling. We don't know what or why the hominids were drilling, but they were definitely using stone tools. Homo heidelbergensis was in fact capable of making tools for his chores, such as stone knives and hatchets. Indeed, Homo heidelbergensis was a woodworking, fire-making, spear-wielding creature who strangely enjoyed drilling holes in objects for unknown reasons. And these hominids appear to have taken great care with their clothing, using stone tools to soften and depress animal hides. Stone tool analysis reveals that they were interested in clothing. A certain number of tools were used to work and scrape hides. If they depress or soften the hides, they can use them to make clothes, which no Ice Age hominid would be willing to live without. Homo heidelbergensis had a massive brain, thick and heavy bones, and evidence of powerful muscle attachments. Indeed, Heidelberg man would have been extraordinarily strong by modern standards, and their skeletons demonstrate that they lived brutally hard lives. He had a muscular build, strong brow ridges, and a broad face, making him a strong and adaptable hominid. The skull also indicates an extremely strong species, with the most prominent brow ridges of any known hominid. His massive and heavy face is even more simian in appearance than Neanderthal man's, with enormous inflated brow ridges that are notably conspicuous and extended, particularly at the lateral angles. There has been much debate about what function the brow ridge served, if any. Most theories center on its role as a feature that strengthened the skull or helped dissipate forces passing through it. However, researchers recently stated that the latter was unlikely, instead speculating that it may have played a role in archaic human social signaling, enhancing aggressive facial expressions. Heidelberg man also had a much thicker neck than modern men do to support their heavy, elongated skulls. Both the back of the skull and the powerful chinless jaw show muscle attachments that made such a neck undeniable. Similarly, the cheek muscles were strong in accordance with the demands of the muscle groups required to operate that heavy jaw. Even the women of the Homo heidelbergensis race had extremely thick brow ridges. The nose was unquestionably large and wide. The longer, wider opening in the nasal of the skull demonstrates this clearly, and there is very little bony support at the top of the nose. It's humbling to think that all of this happened long before early Homo sapiens even began evolving in Africa. But that doesn't take away from the incredible feats of these adventurous hominids who lived outside of Africa and adapted to new environments for nearly 500,000 years. These pre-modern humans were more resilient, mobile, and flexible than we could have predicted. And with that statement, we leave you to ponder the mysteries of our shared human history. Until next time, stay curious and stay questioning. Please check out our channel's other videos, share them and subscribe. Thank you and take care.